Touchdown, Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Rammer, jammer, yellow hammer, come see how we rock this. Alabama fans the best, there's no way you can top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
Welcome into The Process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. I am your host, Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine. Thank you guys so much for joining me today on our YouTube page. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on our YouTube so you can stay updated on all of our content. As always, you guys can check out The Process every Tuesday and Thursday evening right here on our YouTube page. But on this episode, I want to take a look at how the rest of this month could unfold for the Crimson Tide on the recruiting trail, with them picking up a commitment from three-star tight end Robbie Ouzts. On today, I just want to take a look at how the rest of the month of September could look for the Crimson Tide in this recruiting class when it comes to the 2021 recruiting cycle, as well as the 2022 recruiting class. But before I dive deeper into that, I do have to hit you guys with those recruiting updates. So with that being said, let's get the process started. We have a couple of recruiting updates to get to here today. The first coming from the Tide's 2021 three-star defensive tackle commit Anquan Barnes out of Lee Montgomery High School in Montgomery, Alabama. As I got a chance to see Anquan Barnes in action and also got a chance to interview him after Lee Montgomery secured a win over the Eufaula Tigers. So be sure to check out my interview with Anquan Barnes over at touchdownalabama.com. I will include the link in the description of this video. Also check out the highlights I was able to capture of the Tide commit on Friday right here on our YouTube page. So be sure to check out Barnes' highlights along with this interview. I also got a chance to see Tanner Bailey, the 2022 four-star quarterback out of Gordo, Alabama, in action on last weekend, as I got a chance to see him in action Friday when Gordo took on Oak Grove. He only played limited series in that game due to the fact that the game was well in hand early on for the Gordo Green Wave, but I did get a chance to capture some highlights of his. They are included on our YouTube page, so be sure to check out Bailey's highlights as well. I also got a chance to interview him after the game, talk about the talks he has continued to have with coaching staffs since September 1st, which was the first day that Division I college football coaches were able to contact recruits here in this 2022 recruiting class when it comes to personally and directly contacting those guys. And the Tide's coaching staff, along with the Tide's offensive coordinator, Steve Sarkisian, have been in contact with Tanner Bailey. He talked about that contact in an exclusive interview with touchdownalabama.com. The link will be in the description of this video. It is a subscriber-only article, along with Anquan Barnes' interview being a subscriber-only video, so be sure to pick up your subscription to touchdownalabama.com as well. No better time to go ahead and secure that subscription. Looking at Tide's 2021 recruiting class here now, as the Tide's four-star wide receiver commit Ja'Cory Brooks was able to pull in an impressive catch live on ESPN Friday night. So shouts out to the Tide commit, who was able to put his pass catching ability on display under the national spotlight, along with the Tide's five-star offensive lineman commit JC Latham, who also plays for IMG Academy. So shouts out to both of those guys who were able to put on some great performances for IMG Academy on Friday night on ESPN. So if you were not able to catch that game, it was a great game for both of the Tide commits. IMG Academy continues to show why they are one of the top high school football teams in the nation. But staying with the 2021 recruiting class here, looking at the Tide's 2021 recruiting efforts, as they were able to grab a commitment from three-star tight end Robbie Ouzts on today out of Rock Hill, South Carolina, by the way of Rock Hill High School. Another commitment for the Tide here, boosting their 2021 commitments totals to 21, adding their first tight end commit here in this 2021 recruiting class. So another great pickup for the Tide here, another interesting pickup. Be sure to check out our coverage of Robbie Ouzts's commitment over at touchdownalabama.com along with our YouTube page. But as I said earlier in the show, I wanted to discuss what the rest of this month could hold for the Crimson Tide. So that is what we are going to go into next. When you look at what the rest of this month could hold for the Crimson Tide on the recruiting trail, I think it is important to note that the Tide's coaching staff is allowed to directly and personally contact 2022 prospects as of September 1st. And with that in mind, the Tide's coaching staff will turn some of their attention to 2022 prospects, try to establish relationships with guys who they feel will be a priority for them in this 2022 recruiting class. This is a great time to do that, establish that relationship early, show that interest early so it can pay off in the long run. So we are going to see the Tide's coaching staff do that. Of course, they have 2 verbal commitments from linebackers in this 2022 recruiting class already, with pledges from 4-star linebacker Robert Woodyard out of Williamson High School in Mobile, and also a verbal commitment from 5-star linebacker Jeremiah Alexander out of Thompson High School in Alabaster, Alabama. So they currently have 2 in-state commitments in this 2022 recruiting class. So I think the Tide's coaching staff will turn some of their attention there, try to establish those early relationships, continue to extend offers. So we are going to continue to see updates on recruits in the 2022 recruiting class throughout this month, whether that is guys receiving offers from the Crimson Tide, as their coaching staff will continue to evaluate guys in this 2022 recruiting class. They will also continue to establish relationships and strengthen relationships with guys who they already have in a relationship with. So I think that is something to pay attention to as well. Along with that comes the fact that the Tide's coaching staff will also try to stay in contact as much as possible, due to the fact that visits are not allowed at this moment. When you look at the Tide's previous football schedule before the pandemic affected things, you look at their previous football schedule, this Saturday would have been their first home game of the football season, which means they would have had an opportunity to host a good amount of guys, some 2022 prospects along with some guys in the 2021 recruiting class as well. Since they are not allowed to do that, they can stay in contact as much as possible due to the recruiting dead period. They are unfortunately not able to talk to recruits in person and host any in-person contact during any visits. So I think they are going to try to stay in contact as much as possible, establish those relationships a little bit more, which is something they have been getting accustomed to due to the fact that the COVID-19 spread has affected college football recruiting over the last couple of months. So that is something to just keep your eyes on and keep a note on, as you may see a lot of more updates come out throughout this month when it comes to 2022 prospects. Then you turn your attention to the 2021 recruiting class here for the Crimson Tide. The Tide currently has 21 commits now, with Robbie Ouzts, the 3-star tight end out of South Carolina, announcing his commitment to the Tide earlier on today. You guys can check out our coverage of Ouzts's commitment on touchdownalabama.com. Be sure to check out our coverage on our site as well as on our YouTube page of Ouzts's commitment. But going back to Robbie Ouzts, of course, committing to the Tide, giving them 21 commits here in this 2021 recruiting class. The Tide's 2021 class is filled up for the most part now, with Ouzts's commitment and having 21 guys at the moment. They are looking to add 5 to 7 more guys here in this class, possibly end with 26 to 28 guys here in this 2021 recruiting class. When you look at certain positions, it looks as if Alabama has pretty much wrapped up those positions. When you look at the quarterback position, of course, with Jalen Milroe being committed to the Tide, the 4-star quarterback out of Texas, along with the tight end position now, with Ouzts's commitment, combining that with the fact that the Tide's 2020 tight end signee, Caden Clark, will enroll with the Tide's 2021 recruiting class. So basically, they have 2 tight end commits already here in this 2021 recruiting class, wrapping up their tight end recruiting efforts. They also are pretty much done with the linebacker position, but they still have a couple of guys there. But for the most part, they are done when you look at them possibly adding 1 to 2 more guys there. But they want to add at least one more guy to the offensive line group as well, along with the wide receiver group and along with the defensive back group, adding a couple of guys there when it comes to the secondary. And of course, the defensive line position remains right there with the defensive back group, as those groups will look to add a couple of more guys here in this 2021 recruiting cycle. So that is basically the layout of what positions are done with when you look at quarterback and tight end, wide receiver, offensive line, and linebacker are pretty much wrapped up as well. But defensive line and defensive back are the positions that are wide open when you look at the Tide's 2021 recruiting efforts. I also think when you look at this month for the Crimson Tide, I think it is some names to pay attention. There are some names to pay attention to here when it comes to guys announcing commitments soon. Shamrock Jackson is a guy I will continue to pay attention to here over the next couple of months. When I last got a chance to interview Jackson, the 4-star defensive lineman out of Boone High School in Orlando, Florida, I will drop the link in the description of this video when I got a chance to interview him. But when I got a chance to talk with him, he did say that he was thinking about making a commitment soon, and it looks as if the Tide is one of the main runners in his recruitment. So he is a name to pay attention to here, along with the likes of guys like Tomashe Adelie. I know he has hinted at the fact that he wants to hold off until National Signing Day, but he had a commitment date set before he announced his commitment to the Ohio State Buckeyes. He had a commitment time frame set pretty much to announce his commitment before his senior season, but he announced his commitment way before then. So it looks as if he could do that again. We never know with kids; they could announce their commitments at any time. And speaking of recruits who could announce their commitments at any time, you just have to continue to keep your eyes on JaQuincy McKinstry, the 5-star athlete, aka Kool-Aid, out of Pinson Valley High School in Pinson, Alabama, who constantly says that he will announce his commitment at any time when the moment feels right. Of course, he has the Tide in his top 3, along with LSU and Auburn at the moment, as both of those schools, along with the Tide, continue to battle it out for the Pinson Valley product. He is another name to pay attention to this month. His name will be a name to pay attention to throughout this recruiting cycle every month, because he always says that he will announce his commitment whenever the moment feels right for him. So JaQuincy McKinstry is always a name to watch out for here during this month. And moving forward and continuing throughout this month, as the month transitions to October, I think it'll be a great chance here for the Tide's coaching staff to continue their push for guys like Amarius Mims, who will announce his commitment in October, who has a commitment they set in October, along with strengthening their relationships with guys like four-star defensive end Christian Zachary, a defensive end out of Georgia, out of Carrollton High School, who told me that the Tide's coaching staff is in contact with them. He got a chance to talk with Nick Saban a couple of weeks back. He constantly talks with other members of the Tide's coaching staff, including the Tide's outside linebacker coach, Sal Sinceri. So Christian Zachary is another guy I'll pay attention to this month, as his commitment continues to creep upon us here, as the Tide's coaching staff will continue to try to strengthen their relationship with him. So those are the names I will pay attention to this month, along with the Tide strengthening and establishing their relationships with 2022 prospects at the moment. Those are the things to pay attention to, along with the fact that members of the Tide's 2021 recruiting class will continue to start and kick off their high school senior football season. So that is something to pay attention to. We will continue to provide you guys coverage of Tide commits and Tide targets, football seasons, and highlights, and just interviews after the games. Just continue to provide you guys with coverage of how those guys are performing throughout their football seasons, their respective football seasons. And with the pandemic in mind. It has had an impact on high school recruiting, high school football, just as much as it has had an impact on college football recruiting. So we see a lot of states kicking off high school football, different weeks scattered out all over the month, all across the nation. So we are going to see a couple of Tide commits here in this 2021 recruiting class. Basically start off their senior seasons throughout this month. So that is another thing to pay attention to here for the month of September. That will put a bow on this episode of The Process. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on our YouTube so you can stay updated on all of our content. Then head over to touchdownalabama.com. Pick up a subscription. With that subscription, you will be able to read all of our subscriber-only articles. Get your hands on our yearly print magazine issue. So be sure to hit that subscribe button on our YouTube page as well as over at touchdownalabama.com. Then go to your app store, whether that is the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. Be sure to download the Touchdown Alabama app. As always, I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine.